The latest episode of Donnie Dhali reveals the truth on what happened with Brock Boeser at the trade deadline, which calls the Canucks' intentions into question. And speaking of calling out, Tocchet sends a strong message in calling out his biggest stars after a frustrating loss versus Dallas. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Canucks updates as they look to bounce back versus Montreal very soon. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Boeser deadline truth revealed. So on Donnie and Dhali today, they went over what exactly happened with Brock Boeser at the trade deadline. First of which saying that they made a new contract offer to him before last Friday's deadline. Wednesday or Thursday was when it came in. And then they made another offer Friday morning, but they do not believe the offer was close to what Boeser is looking for. The Canucks also did try to trade him on Friday, with some saying, including Elliot Friedman, that the Hurricanes offered a first-round pick from the Rantanen deal for Boeser in the last 30 minutes of the trade deadline, but the Canucks did not want to weaken the team with an investment they would have to wait until the next season to have to pay off. Now, with the Canucks' perspective of this and the Hurricanes deal in particular, I don't blame the Canucks for not taking that deal, because as much as we are in such a very inconsistent spot right now, the Canucks are still within the playoff race. We're still fighting for that wildcard spot, and if we're able to go on a 6-game heater or 5-game heater or anything like that, we can find ourselves fighting for not just a wildcard spot, but for a spot at third place in the Pacific Division. That's a big swing that Vancouver is looking to try and get. They're not just going to try and settle for a wildcard spot. We have a chance where we can get into above that and try to have a decent positioning where we're not having to fight against the team like the Jets in a first round exit most likely. And as well, with what I see here that I don't entirely love was that they did try to trade him. That's me coming from someone who's a big Brock Boeser fan. And I think with Patrik Allvin's reaction in his press conference as to why he was kind of posturing a little bit, why he was saying the things he was saying, you could almost tell that they were definitely trying to trade Boeser. It was not, you can definitely see it on Patrik Allvin's face. He was not happy they weren't able to move Boeser. He may not have been saying that, but his face was definitely saying it, and the way he was saying it, how he was standing at the podium, it was definitely telling that he was not happy that they weren't able to get anything for Boeser. It's not entirely, can't entirely blame him, because if they were trying to get something for him, you do want something that can give you a chance to win now rather than later. The Canucks are still in a playoff race, so they didn't want to weaken the team in any sense in that stretch. But in something that we're going to dive into in a second with Tocchet, maybe that wouldn't have been weakening the team if we're going to see if things do continue the way they've been going for Brock Boeser. However, with this, I am ultimately happy that they were able to keep Boeser. Now the main thing is, can you get a deal done before July 1st and he just becomes a free agent, or are the Canucks just secretly using him as a 1-year rental? That's what's very concerning for me, is that the Canucks are going to go through the rest of the season not talking about a Brock Boeser extension, playing coy to the entire thing, saying they don't have anything planned or they would like to keep him here, and then the second that July 1st hits, he's gone for nothing and they just use him as a rental. And if this is a wild card spot, probably a first round exit against the Winnipeg Jets. So that's not something that the Canucks want ideally. I know that they want to make the playoff revenue, they want to make some form of cash for it, but again, you're sacrificing your team's future for short-term cash. If that's what they're doing, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. I've always been a thinker of try and make money for the long term rather than short term, because long term money is going to go a lot further than short term money will. Yeah, you can enjoy the rewards for it a little bit sooner, but you're not going to be able to reap the rewards for it long term and for your future. Now, with Patrik Allvin's comments as far as why Carson Soucy was gone, which we're going to dive into in another video as well, as far as what it means for the younger guys, the Canucks are planning for the future with their prospects, with their defensive core, as far as their defensive prospects in particular. So for them to be planning for the future in that perspective, but not from a financial perspective, as far as one of their best players, which yes, there is health concerns, there is some age, and as far as the price tag that he's going to warrant. But in this case, with a guy like that that's as valuable, you hope that, hey, I know the things with PD aren't working out. That's maybe why the Canucks are a little bit more concerned to pull the trigger on this. However, with a guy like Brock Boeser, I think this is someone you can't really afford to let go to another team, especially for nothing. So the Canucks are in a situation now where if we didn't move on from Boeser, don't bother moving on from him at all, because you're going to lose him for nothing. Why would you want to just have him for these last 21 games just to ultimately go back to where you were at square one and lose him for nothing? So if the Canucks are going to keep him around for this, might as well just keep him around long term and make sure that you're getting something out of it and not just going to let him walk for nothing. But what do you guys think about this down in the comments? What do you think about all the things that went down about how Boeser was not moved? Are you upset that Boeser didn't get moved? Are you happy he's staying in Vancouver? Let us know down in the comments below. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is Tocchet calls out top players. So last night, it was a very frustrating loss for the Canucks, losing to the Dallas Stars, losing 4-1. It wasn't a pretty game. But Tocchet, when asked about the low time on ice for his Stars, he said, you got to earn your ice time here. You got to, and that's how you win. So you guys can stir it up all you want. You have to come earn your ice time. I don't care how long you've been here. You got to earn your ice time. That's the way it works. That's how you win Stanley Cups. And this was when Tocchet was asked about three players in particular: Elias Pettersson, Brock Boeser, and Jake DeBrusk. Pettersson played the third most minutes and the sixth most minutes at 5-on-5, but only at 16:05 and 12:36. The Swedish centerman finished with 0 points, 0 shots, 3 shot attempts, -3 rating. Pettersson has 1 goal and 1 assist in 8 games since the Four Nations break. I know we've been harping on Pettersson a lot. He is starting to bounce back a little bit, starting to gain a little bit more momentum, but last night was definitely a step backwards for him and the progress that he is slowly starting to make. And it just, with that part of the Four Nations break, it was kind of indicative of how it's been since then. However, he did have that one outlier game in the second last game where he did score a goal. In the game before that, he played a really solid game. But moving on to Boeser and DeBrusk, which is where things get a little shocking, is that Boeser played the 5th most minutes at 15:49 and the 3rd most minutes at 5-on-5, only at 13:04 among Canucks forwards. The American sniper finished with 0 points, 1 shot on net, 1 shot attempt, and a -2 rating. Boeser has 0 goals and 3 assists in 8 games since the Four Nations break. Then you have Jake DeBrusk playing the 4th fewest minutes with 12:45 and the single fewest at 5-on-5 at 10:01 amongst Canucks forwards. The Canadian winger finished with 0 points, 2 shots on 2 shot attempts with a -2 rating, and DeBrusk has 3 goals and 0 assists in 8 games since the Four Nations break. So with Tocchet coming out and saying things like this, he wants production out of his top guys. Pettersson, we've said all we had to say on that. That's one thing. But then you have Boeser and DeBrusk here as well, where DeBrusk, he's been able to get things clicking. He has the 3 goals in those 8 games. I know it's not the production that it was at before the Four Nations break, where we were just really rolling, not only with players and our stars, but also as a team. We kind of lost that momentum a lot, really. But Jake DeBrusk as well. This was a really shocking one because he has been so consistent this year. Of the 3 players, he's been the most consistent, and that's not to say that he's been lights out every single game. These 3 guys, they haven't been as consistent as they should be or as much as we want them to be. Brock Boeser, I know as much as I've said that we want to keep him here, if we're going to give Elias Pettersson all the criticism that we've been giving him this year, we have to deflect we have to put some of it on Brock Boeser. I know with Brock Boeser, it's a different style of player, different age, different health levels. However, it doesn't excuse it. We still need production. He's still one of our best players. So if we're going to be as critical as we are about Pettersson, we have to keep that same energy for Boeser. Unfortunately, as much as you guys might not like it, as much as I don't like it personally, we do have to have that criticism where it is due. And Boeser, right now, he's not playing like the player that we want to keep at $8 million a year for 6 years, which is what it seems like will be the term to keep him there. We know the Canucks are fine on the price tag, $8 million a year, they're willing to pay it. But having him at more than 5 years, that's where it's a bit difficult. But if Boeser wants to get that $8 million a year in 6+ years, he's going to have to play a little bit better than that right now. And not only for the Canucks, but also for other teams. He's hurting his own stock value because if he's not able to produce, how is another team going to be able to take that chance on him? Yeah, the team that is looking at him may be better than the Canucks are right now and might have better weapons for him to play with, but it still will be a factor in that going forward. And one of the things that Tocchet was also frustrated about too with these guys as well, he's like, there's sometimes, we're in the thick of the race. We need some desperation, like grab a puck and do something. And that was something that Vancouver did not have a lot of offense over the last game. It was a very boring game. There wasn't a lot really going on. Vancouver couldn't create many chances, and offense has been a very big struggle as of late. Not only just getting goals, which is the hardest thing to come by, but also in getting shots on net. Patrik Allvin, when asked about it, he kind of retorted with that, saying, well, our PK has been one of the best in the NHL, probably the best, which is true. However, you can't, and like he also said after that, you can't win games by only winning 2-1. We can't win 2-1 every single game through the stretch. We need to score a lot more goals. We need to get games where we're winning 5-2, 4-3, 6-3. We need some of those 7-4 and 7-3 games that we were getting last year. We need some of these blowouts. Let's get some massive wins here against some bad teams, against good teams. I don't care. Let's just get some W's. But what do you guys think on all of this as well? What do you guys think about these three guys not performing? I know you guys are going to jump on Pettersson at all as you guys want, because I know that's the hot thing to do, and he's getting paid the most. I understand that. But when it comes to Boeser and DeBrusk, what are your guys' thoughts on Tocchet's comments and how it applies to them specifically? Let us know down in the comments. Let us know how you guys think about their chances heading into their next game versus Montreal. It's going to be very critical these next few games, looking into it in light of what happened at the trade deadline and how it'll look on Patrik Allvin and this Canucks management. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.